Welcome to the Gospel According to Star Trek podcast. I'm Kevin C. Neese.
And I'm Mike Poteet, and you're listening to episode 48, Face Value. We'll start off with some Star Trek news, and then we'll talk about Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Episode 4, Dreamcatcher.
And then we'll get into our audience question right after our main topic, face value. Don't take that title at face value. We're going to be talking about the value of faces, each other's faces, and the face of the divine. It's going to be a great conversation. Stick around. Well, here we are. It doesn't feel like season 4. I mean, episode 4. See, that's me. I
can tell where your mind is these days.
Yeah, my mind is on disco for sure. But it doesn't feel like episode 4 yet, because I think I said it didn't feel like episode 3 last time. So it's not a very creative.
The season is just not going to slow down, regardless of how we feel about it. And of course, now we're coming up on a break after this week's episode, as we record this, episode 5. So no new Prodigy till January after that. So.
Yeah, it's weird, but it'll be interesting. We'll get to have some disco. But so you've been doing okay, I guess, in the past week.
I've been doing all right. I've been eating too much leftover Halloween candy, but apart from that, doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm not eating any leftover. Well, a little bit here and there, but mostly.
All right. Well, now see, come clean. Confession is good for the soul.
It's mostly just when I have to stay awake while I'm driving. That's
yes. That little
functional. Yeah.
Little sugar hit, just enough to keep you going the next few miles. Yeah.
So it's just something to chew on. That's all it is. Functional candy, utilitarian candy. Oh boy.
So I understand you've got some Star Trek news.
Wait, that's my line. Yes, I do. We've flipped the script on everybody this week. I'm going to give news first. Is that crazy or what?
I don't know if I can handle the stress of this. We need our routines.
We do. Hey, that's true. I'm messing with the liturgy, but
must be a feast day,
right? It's a Halloween candy feast day. All right, we're gonna stop it. So the first piece of news is that the Star Trek movie scheduled for 2023 has been pushed from June to December. So
I hadn't heard that. Really, the end of 2023.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's like 2 years away, man. They can't do that.
Oh yeah, they can. And I mean, it's not like we're going to be starving for Star Trek between now and then.
Well, no, but there's something cool about going out to the movie theater for big screen Star Trek.
Yeah, that's very true.
As great as Prodigy and Disco and Lower Decks and Picard are, it's just not the same as a Star Trek movie.
That is very true. I will give you that. But Indiana Jones 5 got pushed out from next summer to June 2023 a few weeks ago. So that means that Paramount was like, yeah, we need to scoot out of here.
Do they not think there are enough fans to support both projects in one summer? I mean, summers used to be packed full of tentpole blockbusters.
Well, see, what happened was also that Transformers Rise of the Beasts, which is a Paramount property, also shifted, and it moved to Trek's weekend. So they didn't want to have two of their movies going up against Indy 5 and two of their movies going up against each other on the same weekend. So they just moved it.
Even though it's all Paramount.
Well, yeah. Well, actually,
okay,
Indiana Jones. No, Indiana Jones is Disney.
Oh, that's right, because Disney bought Lucasfilm.
That's right.
No, but originally Indy was a Paramount property, right?
Because that's right. It's hard
there's
to
that
adjust.
Great opening shot of Raiders where it but dissolves from the studio logo to the mountain that Indy is going to retrieve the idol. Yeah,
that's right. So
wow.
So
all this corporate conglomeration consolidation just makes everything more complicated.
Yeah. But look,
we can't have our Star Trek movies when we want them.
I know. But look for it December 22nd, 2023. It'll be just in time for Christmas.
Well, and it'll probably be here before we know it. The way
that's true.
The way time flies.
That's the truth, boy. Well, and okay, so and then I think it's your turn. What do you have?
It is my turn. We're going to play a little quiz because I don't think you know the answers to these questions. So this should be fun. Okay. So earlier this month, the week of November 10th, there was an auction at Heritage Auctions, I believe, was the house that did it. And they included among the lots up for auction some props from Star Trek, the original series. And the most expensive one sold was the phaser rifle from Where No Man Has Gone Before, seen only in that one episode, but it's like, one of the coolest sci-fi weapons ever. But do you know how much that phaser rifle went for? If you were to guess what the winning bid for that phaser rifle was, what would you guess?
Well, Heritage Galleries actually is near me. Near my hometown. It's in Dallas. I actually used to work there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I worked in the vintage movie poster department. It was one of the coolest jobs I've ever had.
How neat. Yeah.
And so I'm not at all surprised that something that cool would come through there. And I wish I was still working there just to have been able to walk through the lobby and see it or something,
Yeah.
But how much did it go for? And by the way, it's you said it just appeared in that episode. It also premiered a lot of promotional photos, and I think that's one of the places where people know it from is those promotional photos, even if they haven't seen the episodes. I think
True. It was used. The article points that out. It was used heavily to promote.
I'm going to guess $25,000,
$615,000.
That's pretty impressive.
That is a whole lot of quatloos. I don't know. I don't have that kind of money, but that's pretty cool. But there were also a pair of boots and a Captain Kirk tunic signed by William Shatner, which went for $50K. A chair from the Enterprise Bridge went for $42,500.
Wow.
And an original Tribble. How much do you think the Tribble got?
Oh,
if we have the high end as the phaser rifle at $615, what do you think the Tribble got?
$10.
$10,600. There are some well-heeled Star Trek fans out there.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And David Gerald didn't see a dime of that.
Oh, I know.
That's a shame.
Well, it is a shame. It is a shame. But
oh man,
I hope he takes satisfaction in knowing how much joy his creation has given the world.
I'm sure he does. Oh, that's fantastic.
I can tell a little story. You mentioned that you worked at Heritage. I worked at a rare book company for a dozen years, and we had some Star Trek related items come in occasionally, not very often, but once we got a whole lot of shooting scripts from the original series.
Nice.
Which was pretty cool. And I think once we had the blueprints for from the soundstage that they filmed, where they filmed the cage. So the Enterprise Bridge set was laid out. The Talos 4 surface set was laid out.
Oh,
pretty neat stuff. And I did get to handle those documents and write descriptions of them for our catalogs. And oh boy, it was neat. It was neat.
Look at us being on similar life journees. I
also
wrote catalog
yet
descriptions. Again. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that was my first published book that I was a part of, was the catalog for
nice
Heritage Galleries 2005. That's cool. Well, awesome. Well, I have one more.
Oh yes. What is it?
Thing. This is a pretty cool thing that a listener sent me, actually. There is a Paramount theme park being planned in China that will feature a Star Trek themed area.
Oh, nice.
And they have like an artist rendering, which who knows, how close it'll be,
Right.
But they have an artist rendering on this article, and it is really cool looking. It looks like a matte painting from Star Trek. Like a design for Starfleet headquarters or something like that. It's really, really cool. It's got a big, huge Starfleet insignia up there. And it's really curvy, angular architecture, cool, transparent dome, and all this kind of stuff. It's and
now
fountains and stuff.
Which era or corner of the franchise dominates this Star Trek land?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're just showing artist renderings of people walking around outside and stuff, and so it's just architecture, and it's really cool looking architecture and a lot of like stock digital people. But
so we don't have like attractions announced yet, or rides or shows or things like that.
Yeah, nothing particular, nothing specifically announced as far as actual Trek themed stuff. But it will have a Trek themed section apparently.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it is cool, and it's actually going to open. A target opening date is June of 2024. So, but the way things are going, it'll probably be bumped to December.
Well, I don't think a trip to China is on the offing for me anytime soon.
Well, that's true.
but I never did get to was it King's Dominion in Virginia that had Klingons walking around, and they had they had Star Trek stuff, because I went to college in Virginia while Star Trek was there at King's Dominion, and my sophomore year roommate, one of my sophomore year roommates, went, and he did that where you and a friend are in front of a blue screen and they put you on a Star Trek adventure. Have you seen? If you go to YouTube and look for like Star Trek King's Dominion or Star Trek theme park show or whatever, you'll see they had footage of Nimoy and Shatner. And they'd put you and your friend in chairs in the middle, and then it was like Nimoy and Shatner were coaching you on how to play the captain and the first officer. And then they had this adventure, this whole 20-minute show where you had your lines. As I say you, as though I did it myself, but my roommate did. He had his lines to say, and they would tell him when to look at the camera a certain way and when to do certain stuff, and the first officer gets to do a neck pinch, and so yeah. But if you go online, you can find videos of people who did this, and it's not the slickest looking thing. It hasn't aged real well, but it's kind of fun, and it's the closest most people are going to get to being on the bridge of the Enterprise and that kind of thing. So I'm assuming they improved on that for Star Trek: The Experience when that was in Vegas, and I guess this theme park will be even several levels greater than that.
Yeah, maybe. I was just going to say they did have something like that at Star Trek: The Experience, which I also never got to go to.
No, me neither.
I really wanted to. Always wanted to. I have a mug from there. A buddy of mine went years ago, and he brought me a mug, and so
that's
that was
nice.
Really cool. Yeah. That would be really cool. See, they could do it now with that rear projection screen.
Oh, it'd be so. I know
that they do on that they're going to be doing on season 4 of Discovery. That'll be great.
Yeah,
man, I wouldn't put it past them in China. I mean, they go all out for stuff like that. So
I wonder if they'll have like a ball pit that it's tribbles instead of balls, and maybe it open. Maybe they even have the hatch above you, and you can have all the tribbles fall down on you.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I'm trying to think what episodes I'd like to see made into amusement park attractions. I'll have to give that some thought.
Wow, that's brilliant. Arena.
Can you construct the cannon in time? Yes, to shoot the Gorn. That'd be good.
Oh boy. Wow. That's fascinating. Well, yeah, we'll see what it's like. I don't know. And of course, most of us will probably never be able to go, but hey, such is life. But
But it just goes again to show the global appeal of this franchise.
Absolutely.
And, it's easy, I think, for us over here in the States to think we're the only Star Trek fans there are sometimes, but certainly Star Trek fandom is alive and well all around the world.
Well, I know we're heard around the world. So if you're listening to us outside the United States, hi, and thank you so much for listening. And drop us a line, say hello, tell us where you're from. So that's cool.
Please do.
Yeah,
I would love to hear more about fans' experiences in other countries. So.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be cool. Well, what about this week's episode of Star Trek Prodigy?
Well, this is the series' first cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we'd get multi-part episodes, or multi-part stories, I should say, but I really enjoyed Dreamcatcher a great deal. It's a classic Star Trek trope, right? The planet where one way or other, your memories are made manifest in the real world, right? And I found that I found it a very compelling plot. I thought it showed us a lot about each of the characters. I liked the introduction of the Runaway, the ground vehicle that the Protostar has.
The Argo's grandchild or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and I liked hearing Kate Mulgrew basically quote Samuel Jackson from that lying movie Jurassic Park. Hold on to your butts. when hologram Janeway tells them it has hold on to your butts guardrails or whatever.
Seat handles.
Handles. Yeah. So I enjoyed that a lot
because this is Star Trek, and God forbid we have a seatbelt.
Right. It's at least the 24th century in Prodigy, right? And they still haven't put the seatbelts in. But
that's an interesting thing. I have a hypothesis that we are in at least the 25th century.
Well, it's reasonable since, when they chose to make an emergency command training hologram, they chose Janeway.
Right.
I wouldn't think they'd do that so soon after the Voyager got back.
Right.
So.
Well, and also in this week's episode, on the Protostar, they have that holographic computer interface that Gwyn uses, which is the kind of thing that we see starting in Star Trek Picard, which is 25th century. So that's why I think it's got to be like it's probably 25th century or later.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah. So we shall see.
Yeah, I'm also fascinated by Gwyn's weapon. We haven't really talked about that on our show, but it reminds me of something else from some sci-fi fantasy property. I don't know what, but it's really cool. It's like it responds to her thoughts because she can telepathically summon it even from the brig, and
use the force.
It morphs around her arm, and that's really interesting. And they've, again, like I said when we first talked about Prodigy, it's a mystery, but they don't dwell on it. It's just there to add texture.
Right.
In fact, I thought that was probably the least successful illusion that our characters encounter was Zero seeing the Protostar's engine in the middle of the hedge maze. That was like, oh, don't forget about the mysterious engine. I thought that was the first time Prodigy has kind of just wanted to play mystery box for the sake of playing mystery box. But other than that, I really enjoyed Jankom Pog falling onto the stew just right away, but that was a good example of seeding mystery, because he said, oh, it smells like the stew on the Tellar sleeper ship. And so I think we're getting a tease about his backstory. That's going to, like, what are Tellarites doing in the Delta Quadrant?
Are they? Well, I didn't catch that.
As far as we know, they've always been an Alpha Quadrant species, but So there was apparently, I'm guessing, some Tellarite sleeper ship migration out of the Delta Quadrant at some point. So that could also explain maybe why he looks a little different from Tellarites we've seen before. He doesn't have quite the pig nose that the Tellarites were used to have, or the deep set eyes. He's a Tellarite, we know that, but he looks different, and it could be maybe there's a reason. So we'll see, but
could be.
That was a nice little breadcrumb they dropped for us.
Right. I mean, it could be another one of those, famous Star Trek alien redesigns. But yeah, there does seem to be something. There could be something to his look, other than trying to make him look young and hip or whatever.
To be clear, I don't care that he looks different.
Oh, right. Agreed.
I just think maybe it turns out to be a plot point and not just a visual choice.
That's possible. Yeah, that was really interesting. I didn't even notice that line. So that's fascinating. And it was interesting too to see how the different illusions illuminated our characters, sometimes in ways in which we're probably pretty clearly aware. The fact that Rock Talk loves cute fuzzy things, and
yes,
that's basically Rock Talk's whole thing. She just wants to cuddle. That's just it, and play. That's as long as you
don't tick her off, because I think she's got the capacity to be angry and to be mean if provoked.
She absolutely has. That's very true. But I did feel like, the thing with Zero was a little weird, but I mean, that's kind of Zero's thing. Like Zero seems to pretty much observe everything with fascination.
Yes.
Like they don't really seem to get too uptight about anything or too freaked out about anything. There's an almost Vulcan quality to them because of that, you know, even though they're a much more emotional character, they always kind of have that, just their primary emotional thrust is curiosity, which I really like.
Even as they and Dal are racing through the cilia coming after them in the land vehicle, you know, they say, "Oh, this is exhilarating," or something like that, you know.
they're
like,
just...
"It's trying to kill us."
And they're just fascinated with how it works.
Yes,
like, yes, but it's trying to kill us in such an interesting way.
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't deny the danger, but still, which I could, you know, again, like you say, on a more mellow level, I could totally see Spock, you know, and I think I can't think of instances, but I know there have been times where he's regarded impending doom with, you know, fascination.
Right. Wow. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, and Gwyn's weapon, I mean, there's a lot we don't know about her species, you know.
Right.
But there seems to be some kind of, I don't know, almost a psychic ability, you know, some kind of something. And who knows what that weapon is made out of. Is that weapon actually like a part of her in some way? I don't know. And does that relate to how her father might be connected to the protostar in some way? I don't know. But then it's like, you know, can he not use his mental powers to find it? What's happened to him? There's all that kind of thing. But yeah, her little interesting blade weapon is very unique in Star Trek. I mean, when she was like calling for it with her mind, it was a little bit, you know, Star Wars-ish, a little bit use the Force kind of thing, calling for your lightsaber. But
a little bit, yeah.
But it was still really cool, and I think it's a very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how they explain her species and these weird things of which they're capable.
And didn't Solon, her father, say in the first episode that he and she were the last?
Yes.
So
what happened?
I've seen that in Star Trek a lot too, but usually that creates sympathy for whatever alien is in question, the Horta or whoever, you know, the last of the species is the salt vampire. Well, not too much sympathy from our characters for the salt vampire, but
that's true.
Give that lady some salt. But anyway, so yes, why they're the last two of their species and what happened to their species, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be revealed at some point, or more will be revealed anyway. Maybe not all, but more will be.
Well, and she took command of the protostar too. Like the whole thing is that her father has been training her to be able to operate the protostar.
Yeah,
and she takes command of Janeway, for goodness sakes. Like,
that's a
little bit weird. We're not used to seeing.
Well, Janeway, it's certainly a shift in what we've, you know, in just these few episodes come to expect. You know, yeah.
Definitely. And she was going to, and I mean, I can't blame her. She was going to, you know, turn her back on them.
Yeah.
And go take the protostar to her father. I mean,
well, they haven't been doing a whole lot to treat her very nicely. I mean, they had her lashed to the command chair for the first 2 episodes, and then she's been in the brig ever since, almost. Yeah. So
yeah, she has. And so that's the thing with her. That's that push and pull with her character, where she has those, you know, those loyalties and those goals and those ideals and that purpose that she grew up with. And, you know, the protostar crew kind of offers a new purpose, except they're doing a very poor job of it.
Right.
Because Dal is treating her like a prisoner, which he shouldn't be. I was really disappointed by that. But I think we're all meant to be a bit disappointed by Dal at this point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, clearly when he gets in the, I keep wanting to call it the Jeep,
right?
When he gets in the Runaway and takes off for a joyride, is like, That is disappointing. And,
Yes.
Rock is clearly disappointed too. She says, I thought we were going to go on an adventure together.
Oh, yeah. Poor
which
Rock
is,
Talk.
yeah.
Yeah. It's so endearing, though. I mean,
It
she's
is.
sweet.
The actor who voices Rock Talk is only like 11 years old.
Yeah.
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 So it's a genuine child's voice.
Yeah. She was on the panel on Star Trek Day.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And,
Yeah.
And oh, no, it wasn't Star Trek Day. It was the other panel that they did. I can't recall which one it was. But she was on that panel, and she's fantastic. She reminds me of my son a little bit.
She delivers some great readings of lines. Yeah.
She's really good. Well, and it's funny because she said in the interview, she said, I don't have to act. I just have to be myself. And I like that. But not that she doesn't act, because she does. I mean,
sure.
She delivers really good performances. So that's awesome.
I'm surprised they have D. Bradley Baker, of all people, playing Murph, who doesn't have any intelligible lines, and he's this very accomplished voice actor. He's the voice of all the clones in all the Star Wars animated series, and he's got a great voice, but he's playing Murph, who just kind of chitters.
Yeah, well, he does more of that. If you have to watch him actually do it on the panels.
Oh, I guess I should. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
It's so cool to watch him work. It's amazing.
Okay, well, I'll watch that and be impressed.
So to kind of get into more discussion of the episode 2, one thing we've been neglecting on the show so far is that on Paramount Plus, in the extras for Star Trek Prodigy, there are little lessons for every episode. They're like 1-minute videos with Kate Mulgrew telling you the lesson for this week, kids, from Star Trek Prodigy, which is really kind of weird and didactic for Star Trek.
It's very didactic. It's didactic for good storytelling. I mean,
yeah,
I know sometimes, maybe we even touched on this a few episodes ago, I can't recall, but sometimes teaching like the parables of Jesus in Sunday school, we'll tell them, well, in my tradition, sometimes we'll tell them, others may do better. These are stories Jesus told to make a point, which, okay, that's maybe okay for a child's level understanding, but it's not really what a parable is. And in any story, parable, unless it's a straight out allegory or Aesop's fable or something, most stories, if you say, so the moral of the story is, or the lesson of the story is, you're really flattening it. And
yes.
And so I don't know why Paramount feels the need to, I mean, nothing against Kate Mulgrew, but
right,
I don't know why they feel the need to write these little teaching moments for her. I guess they could be used as jumping off points for discussions, but kind of serving up the moral of the story on a silver platter seems unlike Star Trek to some extent.
It's a little weird. I mean, Star Trek's never ventured into this realm of specifically targeting kids before, and I think that's one of the things they're doing. And if you look in the special features or the extras, as they call them, you also have little videos that introduce you to little bits of Star Trek. It'll teach you about what food replicators are. And
they don't think the kids could just get that from context.
Yeah, again, it's kind of like you can sort of figure this out. It's not that difficult. But I don't know. I guess the feeling is it's weird because when like you were talking about last week, seeing ads for like Paw Patrol and stuff while you're watching Prodigy, and I'm like, that's not really the target demographic here. Like 4 and 5-year-olds is not the target here. I don't think, I think it's more like 10, 11-year-olds, but
I think it's prepubescence and
it's rated
early adolescence.
Yeah, it's rated TVY 7, so it's 7 and up.
Bring out the tiger, the mighty mighty tiger.
Right.
I've been having a craving for Frosted Flakes this month. I'll tell you that much.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, but I thought it would be interesting with these weekly lessons that we could talk about what the weekly lesson from Kate Mulgrew is, and see what we think about it, see how we evaluate it.
Okay.
At least when it's interesting. But this week's lesson for the episode from Mama Kate Auntie Katie.
Is that what we're calling her now?
I don't know. Auntie Katie came in and said that the lesson for this week's episode was relying on your friends. That the problems come in the episode when the characters split up, they go their own ways, and then they get into trouble. And it's only when they come together that they're able to, in her words, avert disaster.
Well, I agree there's trouble when they go their separate ways. I mean, we wouldn't have an episode otherwise.
True.
I'm not convinced disaster is averted. I mean, they all are alive at the end of the episode, which I guess is not nothing. But, you know, it looks to their eyes as though the ship is destroyed, presuming it's not, since they've made such a big deal about the protostar.
Right.
And they're stranded on the ship. And so maybe with part 2 or later, I don't know how long this plot will last, but maybe eventually they'll avert some disaster by relying on each other. But just taking Dreamcatcher by itself, I don't see that lesson from necessarily at least not as the dominant lesson. And I'd be kind of hard pressed to serve up another one in its place, maybe. But we don't have the whole story yet either.
Well, that's true. But what's interesting is I feel like if we take it as this theme, you know, it's kind of there, but I think it's more there if you focus specifically on Dal and say that Dal has kind of set the tone by going off on his own.
Yeah.
And without anybody to wrangle them or rally them together, they just all kind of split off in their disparate directions without really thinking too much about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not a crew yet.
Right.
I mean,
right.
This is the only series we've had so far where, well, again, Discovery, we've watched the crew cohere, but where we've started a show with a non-intact crew as our protagonists.
Well, unless, I mean, you can kind of see that in Picard, actually.
Okay, I'll give you that.
We do kind of gather a hodgepodge crew there too.
You're right. You're right.
But in terms of a crew with no anchor, you know, and no focal point, you know, but that's the interesting thing, because if you look at Dal, it's when his perspective changes, and he starts realizing, oh, I need to get us all together. Then that's when everybody is at least individually saved from getting trapped.
That's true. He does not just go for himself. He does,
right.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe if the focus was a little bit more on Dal's actual character and his change within the episode of thinking about others instead of just himself, I think that idea comes a little more forward. I think maybe it might be the presentation, and also the idea that they've averted disaster, like you said. Like on the whole, it seems like they're in a pretty good state of disaster.
You can't avert disaster and have a cliffhanger. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
I mean, what if they'd said at the end of Best of Both Worlds Part 1, the lesson is you can avert disaster when you
order.
Can you imagine Locutus saying this from the view screen? And the lesson number 1 is.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how these stack up. I think it's just I think it'll be an interesting thing to look at as these lessons continue to come out, and if they persist for 20 episodes, they probably will.
I think here's maybe some venturing toward what I might have suggested as a lesson, and I don't have it as nice and concise as the scriptwriters do for Kate Mulgrew, but I found this episode heartbreaking in some ways, and that surprised me. I mean, we've already established this is not a kiddie show, but it is a show for children, and I was not expecting quite the level of emotional pain that I felt in this episode, and maybe that's just me and my stuff, and I don't know, but I found both Dal's and Gwyn's experiences with the planet, with its cilia, very heartbreaking, because first you've got Dal, who sees his parents, but only from the back. because he never knew them. So he doesn't know what they look like. He doesn't really know his parents. I mean, we established the planet shows you what you want to see most, right? So he's seeing this relationship he's never had. And then Gwyn sees a presentation of her father that she knows is false because he's happy to see her. He expresses great pride in her and her accomplishments. He calls her by her full name. So both these characters have a great deal of emotional woundedness around the issue of parents.
Yeah.
Dal never knew his, and Gwyn knows her father, and as we've talked about in past weeks, is kind of, I don't know if grudgingly obedient is the word, or you touched on it even earlier tonight. She's loyal, but she's conflicted about those. She has conflicted loyalty to her father. Yeah. But this version of her father that the planet for some reason assumes, I think, oh, I'm proud of you, and Gwendala, calling her by her full name. She knows that's not who her dad is. He's our diviner. He's this tyrant who rules this prison planet with an iron fist. So and doesn't show her that kind of affection and love, which I guess we can gather from the planet's reading of her mind. She wants,
Yes.
So I found that really, really emotionally affecting, and like I said, pretty heartbreaking, and pretty brave of this kid show to tackle head on.
Yeah, well, and it's an interesting parallel between the two characters, right? But yeah, they have this similar but different experience. Dal wants to connect with his parents because he's never known them.
Yeah.
But Gwyn has known her father and been closely connected with him all her life in many, many ways, and yet has never had the closeness that she longs for. And so it's this desire for intimacy, this desire for connection.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, to me, I'm gonna just leap with this, okay? So just follow me.
All right.
But it's kind of, we often relate our relationship to our parents to our relationship with God, or vice versa, right? So, and I know people too who, hear all this father imagery that we use for God.
Yeah.
And can't relate to that because their own father is a source of so much pain and probably the painful core of their being.
Yeah.
And so the idea of God as father means God intimidates them. And so when we're looking at this, I just think it's interesting that this is not dissimilar to how people can experience God. People who, like Dal, have kind of made their own way can sometimes have that feeling that they're not anchored, or they're not tethered to anything, because they haven't found a faith that lifts their soul, right? And so they're missing that kind of divine connection, the way Dal is missing the connection to his parents, who he's never met.
Yeah.
And you get this sense that maybe there's something out there, but I can't see the face. And so there's that. But then there's also, with Gwyn, I liken it in my mind almost to somebody who has that sort of fearful relationship to God for whatever reason, either because of the relationship with their parents or because of the religious tradition that they're brought in or up in or whatever, where they feel like they know God in this way that they always kneel before God, and they always give God deference, and they always call God by, a high and lofty title, but they don't know God as a loving parent.
Right.
And so I think that's really an interesting, not an intended message there, but interesting images, I think. Images that I think many of us can relate to regarding how we do and don't relate to God, and where one person, sees the face of their parent, right, but can't connect. Well, and really, Gwyn, she always bows her head when she goes to talk to her father anyway. Right. So who knows how much she ever, the fact that he's looking her in the eye, in that illusion,
right,
maybe a big tip off. I mean, definitely is a big tip off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, with Dal, he never sees that face, and longing for that connection and not having it. I think we can get that both outside and inside religion. And again, it's kind of a theme we come back to in the series. Religion is not the answer, but there's a truthful encounter that we're looking for that we're not finding.
Yeah, it's interesting you say you're not sure how much is intended about reading a relationship with God into Gwyn's relationship with her father, because I wondered during the first episode, they call this figure our diviner. And of course, to divine is a verb meaning to ascertain, to perceive, right? But it is the word divine right there. And one of the first things we hear about the diviner from Dreadnought in that first episode is, our diviner has a plan. And Gwyn says, which he never tells us. Now, is that not, that. I think all Christian traditions talk about God has a plan.
Yes.
But
that feeling shut out because you don't know what the plan is.
Right.
When you hear that rhetoric, it can be very damaging to be like, well, then why doesn't God let me in on this plan that God has?
Right. So I wonder how much maybe there's a subtle invitation there for those who want to wonder about such issues in connection with that relationship.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because I had thought about that when I saw the episode and I had forgotten about it. So I appreciate you mentioning it now, because that's a really good point.
It struck me as, it made my theology radar go off. Diviner plan, not knowing. Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
There's some grist for the mill there.
Yeah.
As there is in the fact that Dal doesn't see his parents' face. One of my professors in seminary, well, I took one class with him, so to call him my professor is a little bit of a stretch. But a professor whose class I took and who was very well respected, Dr. James Loader, he talked a lot about, his whole endeavor was to correlate human psychology and human development specifically to the experience of faith. Not in a mechanical way, but how could one of those dynamics illuminate the other? Right. And one way he did that was talking a lot about the importance of an infant's sight of its parent's face. How that connection, especially, he said, to the maternal face, but I would think any infant's connection to a human face, that's the face of someone who is loving them and caring them and nurturing for them. He said that's so critical to our development as people, and that when that face is not there, it's a trauma. And so we have to find ways to work through that and to come to terms with that. He saw in that yearning for the parental face, a yearning for God's face. He said that we long for a face that will not go away, the way our parents' faces will, whether it's through abandonment or neglect, or just the fact that we grow up and they get older and we lose our parents. Eventually our parents' faces go away. And Dr. Loader said, we're always yearning for a face that will not go away. And that's the face of Christ. He said that we long for a face in whose eyes we are given a place in the cosmos, confirmed as a self, and addressed by the presence of a loving other. And so as I saw this scene where Dal is unable to see the parental face, I thought back to that class, and Dr. Loader had many high and lofty thoughts, and I didn't get a lot of them, but that was one that stuck with me, was that importance of the face of the parent, the face of God. And your point is well taken. Parental language about God is not helpful for everybody. And I don't believe myself that the Bible or Jesus mandates we use it. I mean, yes, Jesus invites us to pray to our Father in heaven. And I think if we're someone for whom that language is difficult, we might be able to try it and see if perhaps our feelings shift as we use that language. I don't think Jesus didn't mean nothing by that, but I also think there's room and space enough and variety enough in our scriptural and theological traditions for other ways of picturing God. But that longing for the parental face, that longing for the divine face. And while I do agree with you that parental language about God can be very problematic for some people, there's also something very powerful there. And I think that's why I think Jesus knew it would be problematic for some people, but he did invite us to pray to God as our Father in heaven. And I don't think there's no reason for that.
Right. And I've certainly known people who prefer to refer to God as a mother or a parent,
right.
or any other number of ways to refer to God, which are perfectly fine. You know, they're rooted in biblical tradition, they're rooted in Jewish religious tradition, they're honest expressions. And I think that's really important, you know, to be honest about that, about who God is to us. I think sometimes, you know, maybe the traditional ways that you're around or that you grow up with, maybe those themselves become damaging because of your religious environment. You know, if you're sitting there and you're saying, well, you know, I can't relate to God as my father. Well, fine. How can you? You know, what can you find? And look around, look in your world and look in your life and look at all of the goodness, the truth, and the beauty, as we talk about on the show all the time, the goodness and the truth and the beauty around you. You know, where do you find it? Okay, well, all goodness is God's goodness. All truth is God's truth. All beauty is God's beauty. There's something for you to find out. There's something for you to learn about who God is in all of that goodness, truth, and beauty that you see in your life, even if it's small glimmers. Now take that, follow that thread, see where it leads you. You know?
Yeah.
We talked recently on the show about asking and seeking and knocking, you know, as Jesus talks about. Keep that up, you know, and I love it. I'm thinking back to the piece that you read last episode from Tillich, you know, about saying, you know, you don't have to know the name by which this is called, right? Yeah. You don't have to know everything about this that calls to you, this grace that comes to you. Wherever you find it, you don't have to, you know, just exist with the knowledge of it, right? I did a lot of drama, like church drama stuff when I was younger. I was in the church theater department, whatever. And
cool.
And there was this sketch that we did. I don't know what it was or where it was from, but you know, Jesus was talking to this you know, young woman who was upset and hurt and had gone through all this stuff in her life, and she said, I just worry that I won't live up to your expectations. And Jesus said to her, you don't have to live up, just live. Huh. And I've hung on to that from this one weird sketch from whenever. I've hung on to that for so long and mulled over that idea of Jesus saying that to us. And does Jesus really say that to us? And what does that mean? You know, and I felt echoes of that in that Tillich piece that you were talking about, and the idea that we can be ourselves in the presence of God, and that actually is a way to find God.
Yeah,
through that honesty. The other thing that you bring to mind when you talk about this communication, this needing the face, right? This longing for the face that won't go away. I just was recently reading about C.S. Lewis's "Till We Have Faces," which is kind of an allegory, you know. But the idea of that title, "Till We Have Faces," summed up, I think, well, paraphrased a bit from Lewis's actual line, but summed up well by a song called "Chasing Fury," is called "Wait Forever." It says, how can we see God face to face till we have faces? The idea is that the character in the book, the gods don't reveal themselves to this character because she is not bringing her own face for them to see. And there's a sense that she hasn't found her honest self. She hasn't been honest with herself about her own need. And there's no way for her to connect because of that. That the needing and the questioning, that's actually the revelation. And I found that really interesting. And in parallel with what you're saying there, the idea that our honest selves is who we are, no matter what that looks like, no matter how we might think that that's broken or awful or scarred. It probably is in one way or another, right? But it's that doesn't surprise God. That doesn't put God off, right? You don't have to live up, just live. And I promise you, that's there for you. I promise it's there for you. It can be very hard to find that, but I think a lot of times it starts with finding that honesty about yourself and understanding, like we said last week, that you are accepted exactly as you are. Exactly as you are. You are accepted. You are loved exactly as you are. Not because everything you are, all those broken bits, are part of everybody, right? That doesn't mean all of that can't be fixed or doesn't need to be fixed or is just okay, right? But it does mean that you are worthy and needy of love, and you are accepted on that basis. So yeah, it's very interesting.
One line I've heard preachers use that has stuck with me from my growing up in the church was, God loves you as you are, too much to leave you as you are. So that, you are accepted for the purpose of, being redeemed and transformed and made whole and loved up to a new life.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lewis, I'm reminded of a mother who wrote to him, who was concerned that her son, who'd read the Chronicles of Narnia, which present Aslan, the lion, who's a figure of Jesus in that world. She was concerned her son loved Aslan more than he loved Jesus. and Lewis wrote her back, Lawrence, the boy, can't really love Aslan more than Jesus, even if he feels that's what he's doing. For the things he loves Aslan for doing or saying are simply the things Jesus really did and said. So that when Lawrence thinks he is loving Aslan, he is really loving Jesus, and perhaps loving him more than he ever did before. So thinking about this issue of what language, what image do we use for God, do we have for Jesus, Lewis understood that language and images others might not find appropriate or helpful, other people will find appropriate and helpful and maybe even transformative.
Right. Hey, I relate to that. So, and I've heard that many times, and it's always worth hearing again, because it's so true. And I sit here recording today wearing my Saint Spock t-shirt.
Which is almost asked, which character in Star Trek would you say is your closest image for God?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say. I mean, Spock is one of them, but like it's this stained glass window, with Spock on it, and it's not at all there. You'd be hard pressed to find a specific Christian image in this. But it's definitely based on saint icons.
Yeah.
He has a halo around his head, and he's holding a tricorder instead of a Bible, and holding up the Vulcan salute, which of course the Vulcan salute actually comes from Jewish religion. We can talk about that.
Sign of blessing. Yeah.
It is a blessing in the name of Yahweh. And we can talk about that another time. But I mean, I don't know how this shirt was intended. I have 2 of these shirts. I also have a canvas print of this image hanging on my wall. And I don't know how this was intended exactly, if it's meant to be, nerdery supplanting religion or whatever, or logic over faith. I don't know, but I wear this and I hang it on my wall very sincerely, because there is a sacredness to the way that I have been able to connect with God, to connect with my faith through Star Trek. Now, Star Trek's just one of the ways, but Star Trek has been for the past however many years, 12 or 13 years of my life, has been an increasingly deep and rich and beautiful way to connect with that. And as I love Star Trek, it's exactly what Lewis is talking about. That I'm loving the things in Star Trek that are true and good and beautiful, that where God is, that whether intentionally or not, God is a part of Star Trek, because God is a part of all of our human endeavors, especially our creative efforts, and even when we're unaware.
Yeah, God doesn't need an invitation from the producers at Paramount Plus to show up on Star Trek.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as you describe that picture, it makes me think about icons and iconography in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, which I'm by no means an expert in, but I do know that icons are more than just pictures, that properly understood they're windows through which God can be seen. So perhaps Saint Spock and others in Star Trek serve that iconographic function as well.
They do. I think they really do. And I think that's part of the importance of discussing these things, because we do, without realizing it, without knowing it, I think we do make icons for ourselves out of books we read, music we listen to, films we watch, all that sort of thing. Even people in our lives are icons in the sense of being windows. I think that's a really great, beautiful thing. And the making of an icon is considered a sacred act. It's a very worshipful act. And so I see that very much. And I think all of that, again, I think that comes back to this idea of that longing for the face that will not go away. One of the really important things we learn in early childhood is that the people we love, they go away, but they come back. Right. And so that coming back, even that is sacred, is sacramental. When we think, we're coming up on Advent, which is the coming of Christ, but also about the return of Christ,
the coming back of Christ.
They go away, but they come back, and there's an eternal truth there. That cyclical reality, and so we're always looking for that, and that's one of the reasons, perhaps, that the fastest connection for our eyes to make, the most easily recognizable pattern to our eyes, is a face.
Right.
It's whatever.
We see faces where there are no faces, right? Like the face on Mars, the face of the man in the moon, the face in the clouds. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, I think that's beautiful. And I think, it's a small moment. It's not a small, but I mean, it's as an insignificant, but it's a relatively brief pair of moments in this Prodigy episode. But I think it speaks volumes to what we're actually searching for as human beings. And I mean, that's what Star Trek does so well.
Yeah. The human adventure, the human quest.
Yes.
They're not the main moments of the episode, but they certainly packed a big emotional punch for me. And so I appreciate you being willing to talk about them with me, because it helps me understand why a little more.
Well, and that's what we do around here, isn't it?
I guess so.
We talk about the things we love so we can understand better why we love them, because we love them for deeper reasons than we realize.
It's not just because it's cool.
Yeah.
Although it can be that as well.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we just kind of smushed right into our main topic tonight, but
sometimes that's the only way to get into a main topic. Just smush your way in.
Sometimes you just smush right into it, but it was a good smush. So yeah. But I think we have brought ourselves to the place in the episode where it is time to explore our audience question.
Let's hear what they have to ask us. So our audience question this week: what classic American sitcoms or dramas do you think our beloved Star Trek characters are watching in holodeck-created living rooms? Original series is a must, the listener says, and other series would be fun to discuss. Oh, so he's not suggesting they're somehow watching Star Trek. He wants us to at least talk about the original series characters. And a freebie Lower Decks would be party watching Lower Decks, making fun of how inaccurate their portrayals are, except everyone but Boimler will agree they got him perfect. I do like that. Now, if any Star Trek series would have the characters watching Star Trek, it would be Lower Decks.
It would be Lower Decks. Yes. Because, everybody at Lower Decks does watch Star Trek. They have to. They're all fans.
They do. Didn't Gene Roddenberry suggest that what we were seeing as Star Trek was a dramatization of the actual events in the Federation of the 23rd Century. So that there, and I think his preface that he writes in Kirk's voice to the TMP novelization suggests that Kirk has seen some dramatic adaptations of the 5-year mission, which
you're kidding.
I think no, I'm not making this up. We're supposed to understand. I think that's the 79 episodes of TOS.
Oh, that's because meta.
Kirk is kind of self-deprecating about some of the dramatic presentations of overemphasized my heroics or whatever. Yeah. So what classic American sitcoms or dramas do you think our beloved Star Trek characters are watching?
Oh boy.
Well, I'm just going to talk about the crew as a whole. I think I want to see. I have two options. One, I desperately want to hear somebody in Star Trek mention once, unironically, that the Star Wars franchise is remembered in the 23rd century and beyond. I want to hear somebody quote a long time ago, and I want to hear or talk in a Yoda voice or something. I desperately want that because Doctor Who, the characters have mentioned Star Wars and Star Trek. So really? If Star Trek's future is ours, except it's a future where Star Trek the TV show never existed, that doesn't mean Star Wars never existed, right? So, and my other thought is, in terms of sitcoms, maybe they're watching The Addams Family, because The Addams Family is this, from outside perspective, weird, ooky kooky group of disparate and diverse creatures, but they all come together to form a family, and I think there's something very Star Trek-ish about that. These characters whom others see as misfits and not quite normal, but there's diversity and there's a combination and there's some infinite value to the Addams Family. So
wow.
That's my sitcom response. What have you got?
I love the snaps. That's great. Wow, that's some really interesting. I did not expect you to go there. That's really.
I'm not really sure I did either, but I think it works. I like it. I'm sticking with it.
All right. Let's see. All right. I'm a little uncertain about this here because, there is an idea that I think Gene felt that television would largely have fallen out of fashion, much like religion, by the 23rd century. And yet we have had, movie nights on Voyager and Discovery.
That's right.
And, that sort of thing. So, and, Archer watches water polo.
So
it's there and it exists somehow, somewhere. If anybody can find time between, creating tachyon pulses and, inverting the phase inducers or whatever it is they're doing, or growing plants in small pods and
teching the tech.
Teching the tech. Exactly. But he's specifically asking about classic American TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
Or TV shows, not movies. Just
sitcoms or dramas, they say.
So, they might watch The Orville.
Well, there you go. They might.
Somebody has said once, like, these people can look out their windows and see space. Why do they have paintings of space on all their walls? And so one can ask a similar question, like, why would people who are on starships all day watch a show about starships? But
why do Americans watch shows about cops and nurses and lawyers?
Well, true. Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, a lot of like sitcoms, especially, are like just normal everyday life. Like they're supposed to be relatable like that. And so I'm trying to think what's relatable to Star Trek people. I'm like, well, the Orville. I don't know if I call it classic.
Yeah. Well, maybe in time.
Oh, I know exactly. There's one classic American sitcom that is the favorite sitcom of everybody in Star Trek. It's canon.
Oh,
are you ready? I Love Lucy. Because Lucille Ball saved Star Trek.
She did.
Everybody in Star Trek has to love I Love Lucy.
Now that would be great if in season 4, instead of showing a Buster Keaton movie, the computer shows them Lucy stomping on the grapes or trying to keep up with those medicine bottles as they come down the assembly line, or is it chocolates? I forget which. But
chocolates.
Okay, but there's also a bit with medicine bottles, isn't there?
Yeah, the Vita Benjamin. Learn your Lucy here, man.
Well, that would be awesome. That would be great, because I think that would be a wonderful tribute, because she did save Star Trek and Mission Impossible both. Those shows were expensive for Desilu to make, but she believed in them,
and they both had Leonard Nimoy. So hey, maybe
just
wanted to see more Leonard Nimoy. I mean, I wouldn't blame her. He's great. So man, wow. So that'd be so cool. That'd be the best tribute possible. I would love that. I would probably.
I hope they will. That'd be great.
Man, start a letter campaign.
I haven't even seen any Buster Keaton, but I've seen Lucille Ball. So
right.
I would like
everybody tag tweet at Michelle Paradise, with the hashtag Lucy on Star Trek. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, cool. Well, thanks for that. Cool question. We like the whimsical questions. We like the serious questions. We like all your questions, and we appreciate you sending them to us at gospeltrekpodcast@gmail.com. So please do that. I'll say that again later in the show, but why not say it now? So, Mike, this has been a really cool episode. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too.
I hope.
Thank you for the discussion. It was great.
Yeah, it's really great. So, what do we got coming up next week? It's been such a good episode. I want to know what's happening next week.
Well, next week we have a 1-2 punch, because we're going to be talking about the 5th and, for now, final episode of season 1 of Star Trek Prodigy, which is titled Terror Firma. Firma. It's a little bit, few weeks too late for our spooky Trek episode, but
a little bit.
Terror Firma. And we're also going to be talking about the first episode of season 4 of Star Trek Discovery, which is titled, drumroll please, Kobayashi Maru. I cannot wait.
What the cats?
I don't know, but it's a Star Trek 2 reference, and I'm all in.
Well, it's crazy because the Prodigy episode is a Discovery reference, because there was Terra Firma parts 1 and 2,
right
in Discovery. So Star Trek's self-referential all over the place. It's the Lower Decks vibe, just pushing out into Star Trek.
Well, there's just so much Star Trek now. It's all tripping over each other's feet.
I guess so. Well, I'm excited.
Terror Firma, that's going to be, I guess some really scary things are going to happen to our Prodigy cadets next week. This week.
We shall see. One would hope.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about Discovery coming back. It's going to be a really interesting episode next week. Don't look for a main topic. Our main topic is going to be, there's a lot of Star Trek this week.
2 new Star Trek in 1 week. What more main topic do you need?
Exactly. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I hope everybody at home listening to us, I hope you're looking forward to it as well. And in the meantime, please like, share, rate, comment, and subscribe wherever you can do that. And also, as I mentioned before, please send us your questions. We are Gospel Trek Pod on Twitter and Instagram, Gospel According to Star Trek on Facebook, or you can email us at gospeltrekpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to answer your question on the show.
Also, you can support the show by using the support button on anchor.fm/GATST, or by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/Gospel Trek Podcast. You can support the show, help us make good content, and get some cool perks as well.
And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Gospel According to Star Trek podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time,
I'm Mike Poteet.
And I'm Kevin Sinise. And as Jesus said in John 10:10, live long and prosper. See you next time.